Catherine's voice cut through years of noise. In a rare public statement from Kensington Palace, she directly addressed the swirling affair rumors linking Prince William to Rose Hanbury, not with vague allusions or quiet denials, but with a clear, pointed rejection. She didn't just deny the gossip. She called out its source, pointing to Meghan Markle's circle as the origin of a smear campaign meant to fracture the royal family from within. According to insiders, the rumors weren't just careless whispers. They were calculated distractions, strategically timed to deflect attention from Meghan's own controversies. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. For Catherine, staying silent wasn't an option anymore. Too much damage had been. The timing of her response reflects something deeper than personal defense. It's a calculated effort to reinforce royal unity while publicly isolating those seen as agitators. As Meghan and Harry's public approval wanes, especially in the UK and parts of the Commonwealth, Catherine's decision to step forward signals a shift in how the palace handles scandal, no longer just containment, but confrontation. The statement disrupted a years-long media echo chamber and reframed the narrative under Catherine's terms. It wasn't just about correcting the record. It was about drawing a line, asserting credibility, and restoring the monarchy's grip on its own story. Well, she finally said it. After years of whispers, rumors, and internet sleuths trying to piece together clues from blurry photos and stiff royal appearances, Princess Catherine stepped up to the MIC and didn't just clear the air. She blew the entire roof off. In a rare and pointed statement from Kensington Palace in 2025, she addressed a scandal that's haunted her marriage for years, the alleged affair between Prince William and Rose Hanbury. And she didn't dance around it. She didn't issue one of those vague, royal-adjacent deflections. Catherine directly denied everything, and then dropped the real bomb, claiming that the entire cheating narrative wasn't just false, but strategically planted by Meghan Markle's inner circle to destabilize the royal family. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. That's right. According to Catherine, this wasn't just tabloid fiction. It was a calculated campaign designed to shift the public spotlight, distract from Meghan's controversies, and undermine the Wales family's reputation. Let's backtrack for a second. The rumor mill first started grinding back in 2019. A tweet here, a blind item there. Then came the now infamous Giles Corran tweet, casually implying that William had been unfaithful. It blew up across social media, spiraled into tabloid speculation, and before anyone could say sources close to the palace, the story had taken on a life of its own. Despite being unverified, the rumor had legs, and the internet ran with it. Every cold glance between William and Catherine, every awkward body language breakdown, every time Rose Hanbury's name appeared in print, it all became evidence. And with the monarchy already under pressure, the timing couldn't have been worse. But the palace stayed silent. No confirmations, no denials, no lawsuits, just the usual stoic silence. And that silence, as always, got interpreted as guilt. For years, Catherine bore the brunt of it. She was picked apart by media and social platforms alike, some painting her as a loyal, long-suffering wife, others accusing her of being complicit in keeping up appearances. Either way, her image was tied to a scandal she never acknowledged, until now. Because in this 2025 speech, she didn't just defend her husband. She took control of the entire narrative. Catherine said unequivocally that the cheating scandal was fabricated, not exaggerated, not misunderstood, made up with intent by people connected to Meghan. She said the goal was simple: throw the Wales family into chaos, shift attention, generate scandal, feed the media beast that Meghan herself was battling. In her words, it wasn't just gossip, it was strategic sabotage. And she had receipts, well, royal-style receipts. She referenced the exact timeline, how the gossip exploded right when Meghan was under fire in the press, how it started online before tabloids ever touched it, how certain outlets mysteriously amplified it with no real sources. The dots were all there, and Catherine connected them with a kind of calm, calculated delivery that reminded everyone why she's called the monarchy's secret weapon. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't throw insults. She laid out facts. And what hit hardest wasn't just a denial, it was the accusation. Because turning the focus back on Meghan and her circle reframed everything. It wasn't just a baseless rumor anymore. It was a deliberate, coordinated attempt to damage William and Catherine's public standing during one of the most turbulent periods in royal history. Suddenly, the scandal wasn't about infidelity. It was about manipulation. According to Catherine, this campaign was designed to play on the royal family's long history with affairs, Charles and Diana, Edward VIII, the ghost of extramarital drama that still lingers in British memory. The narrative fit too perfectly. People believed it because they'd seen it before. It made the lie feel like truth. And that's what made it so effective. But it wasn't just about Catherine and William. This went deeper. The scandal worsened the fracture between the brothers. William, furious over the rumor, reportedly believed Harry knew where it came from. And when Harry didn't publicly refute it, or call out the behavior from Meghan's camp, it deepened the rift. According to insider reports cited in Catherine's speech, Harry's approval ratings took a nosedive around the same time. Support dropped in the UK, wobbled in the US, and their joint ventures started to see cracks, legal issues, fundraising slumps, cancelled deals. And while Meghan was dealing with her own controversies, this new layer of palace betrayal only widened the distance between the two camps. Meanwhile, social media turned into a war zone. Campaigns like #KateStrong and #IStandWithMeghan became battlegrounds, with users picking apart every outfit, every expression, every interaction. And the scandal, no matter how shaky the foundation, wouldn't die. Catherine's statement finally cut through the noise. But the impact didn't stop with just clearing William's name. This marked a major turning point for how the royal family handles rumors. Historically, they've leaned on silence. But Catherine didn't just break rank, she redefined it. She acknowledged that modern scandals require modern responses. That silence in the age of viral misinformation isn't strength, it's surrender. She also highlighted the role of digital platforms in magnifying the lie. How something as flimsy as a tweet spiraled into an international scandal. How echo chambers amplified fiction until it became accepted fact. And how the monarchy, an institution built on control, found itself vulnerable in the age of algorithm-fueled drama. Photos. This wasn't just about saving face. It was about protecting the monarchy from future hits. And Catherine, in stepping forward, made it clear that she's not just a figurehead. She's an operator. But she didn't pretend the damage wasn't done. She addressed the toll on her family, her marriage, her children, the constant headlines, the questions, the online abuse. And for the first time, she acknowledged just how exhausting it's been to maintain composure while being picked apart by a global audience convinced they know your life better than you do. She stood there, not as a perfect princess, but as someone who had reached her limit and was done being silent. What this means going forward is hard to predict. But one thing is certain, Catherine's public pushback has already shifted the balance of public opinion. Core support for her and William remains strong, while Meghan and Harry continue to lose ground. Their foundation, Archewell, has seen donation fluctuations. Their projects are under more scrutiny. And without direct responses to Catherine's claims, the silence speaks volumes. Critics say this move was calculated, timed, rehearsed, and polished for maximum impact. Supporters say it was long overdue. Either way, it worked. And just like that, the narrative from "Did William cheat?" to "Why would Meghan make that up?" From Catherine staying silent to Catherine's done taking hits. The royal family, despite everything, is still standing. But it's clear now that they are no longer relying on tradition alone. They are adapting, responding, and, at least in Catherine's case, fighting back. So now it's did Catherine's statement change your view? Was this the royal family finally defending themselves, or another strategic spin? Is this a reset, or just another chapter in an endless saga? Let us know what side you're on in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives like this one, because the truth may finally be out, but the drama? Now that's never ending. And just when you thought the dust had settled, Catherine's speech sparked a kind of aftershocks that could only come from a royal grenade finally being thrown after years of calculated silence. Because this wasn't just a statement. It was a declaration of war on a narrative that had, for far too long, defined how people viewed her marriage, her role, and the entire structure she stood for. By openly attributing the cheating rumors to Meghan Markle's inner circle, Catherine didn't just deny the scandal. She redirected the fire. She challenged not only the story, but the very source of the story, pulling the curtain back on a feud that has, for years, been fought in whispers and headlines. And that's what made the moment so explosive. Because now, what was once a vague suspicion, just another piece of royal tabloid gossip, has become a full-fledged accusation with names, context, and consequences. And once Catherine spoke, people listened. The media scrambled to respond. News outlets that had once cautiously danced around the William Rose Hanbury affair story suddenly found themselves re-examining their sources. Publications that had profited off the rumor for years now face uncomfortable questions about how that narrative was built in the first place, and whose hands were shaping it. It wasn't just a case of royal drama. It became a story about influence, about narrative control, about who really has the power to define reality in the modern media age. Catherine, without raising her voice, reminded the world that even in a monarchy obsessed with decorum and tradition, there's a limit to how much anyone, royal or not, can take, and she had reached hers. But this wasn't just about setting the record straight. This was about repositioning herself as more than a passive figure in the middle of the William versus Harry war. For years, Meghan had been loud, public, emotional, claiming the role of the wounded outsider who stood up to the system. Meanwhile, Catherine played the long game. She kept her head down, said nothing, stayed composed. Until now. And that strategic patience paid off. Because when she did speak, her words carried weight. The weight of 5 years of built-up questions. The weight of relentless gossip. The weight of being cast as either the silent sufferer or the icy antagonist in someone else's story. In a single, well-executed move, she flipped the table. And it's not just media perception that changed overnight. Internally, within the royal household, this moment marked a shift in how the firm is choosing to handle its public image. For decades, the motto was never complain, never explain. But Catherine's address proved that those rules have changed. This wasn't a leak. This wasn't a background briefing or a vague denial through sources close to the palace. This was direct, on record, public, and purposeful. Because the royal family now understands something that Meghan and Harry tapped into early on. Silence in the digital age doesn't look noble, it looks guilty. And in a world where the line between public perception and institutional stability is paper-thin, Catherine's move wasn't just about optics. It was about survival. And speaking of survival, let's talk about Harry. Catherine didn't mention him by name, but the implications were crystal clear. His silence in the face of the William cheating rumors, his unwillingness to shut them down publicly, even while he and Meghan were engaging in multiple media projects. That silence now reads a complicity. And for the public, especially those who once saw Harry as a brave truth-teller, that complicity stings. Because if Catherine's version is true, then Harry allowed one of the most damaging narratives about his own brother to live unchecked, not because it was true, but because it was useful. It's no surprise, then, that his approval ratings have taken a hit, especially in the UK, where the concept of family loyalty, however flawed, is still held sacred in the royal context. And if your brother is being dragged through the mud and you're just watching from California, that doesn't exactly inspire confidence. But it's not just Harry who's under scrutiny. Meghan, who has carefully built a narrative centered around victimhood and injustice, is now facing backlash from people who feel misled. If she and her team did feed or amplify these cheating rumors as a media distraction, that doesn't just hurt the monarchy, it undermines her credibility. Because if you're fighting for truth, transparency, and compassion, why fabricate a scandal that could destroy another woman's family? That's a question echoing through every royal commentary channel right now. And Catherine, she knows it. Her statement didn't just clear her name, it invited the public to re-evaluate everything. Not just the rumors, but the entire Sussex versus Wales narrative. Who was really telling the truth? Who was really playing the game? And who, in the end, came out stronger? Because let's be honest, Catherine didn't need to speak. She'd survived the rumor mill. She'd kept public support. She didn't lose titles or projects or philanthropic partnerships. If anything, the scandal made her more relatable to those who saw her as too perfect, too polished. But by speaking now, she reminded everyone that restraint doesn't mean weakness. that silence doesn't mean submission, and that the royal family can adapt when it chooses to, and that adaptability is exactly what's keeping the monarchy alive right now. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just a Catherine moment. It was a monarchy moment, a calculated, coordinated shift in how the royal family is going to handle public narratives going forward. The days of hiding behind stiff upper lips are gone. The new strategy? Step in, shut it down, and then walk away without flinching. It's a move that might have come too late for previous generations, but for Catherine, it landed at the perfect time. PW, especially as questions about the future of the monarchy continue to swirl. The next generation, William, Catherine, their children, are now carrying the full weight of public trust. And scandals like these don't just threaten personal reputations. They threaten the institution's very ability to function. If people stop believing in the integrity of the family, they stop supporting the idea of a monarchy. It's that simple. So when a rumor like this lingers for 6 years, unchecked, it's not just gossip, it's a threat. One Catherine neutralized in under 10 minutes. But here's what's wild. Even now, after the denial, after the shift in narrative, the ripple effects are still unfolding. Public opinion polls show a slight uptick in confidence toward the monarchy, especially among younger Brits, who've grown cynical about the institution but responded well to Catherine's clarity. Meanwhile, support for Meghan and Harry continues to decline, especially in the context of credibility and trustworthiness. And that trust, that core connection between royals and the public, is everything. You can't fake it. You can't stream it. You can't buy it back once it's gone. To Wales, which is why this moment, this line in the sand, mattered so much. Catherine didn't just deny an affair. She exposed a power play. She confronted a years-long narrative head-on and walked away without blinking. That's not just media savvy. That's leadership. And it's the kind of leadership the monarchy is going to need if it wants to survive the next decade intact. So here we are. The scandal that once dominated headlines, tweets, Reddit threads, and speculative think pieces has finally met its match. Not in the form of a legal threat, not in a palace-issued press release, but in the voice of the woman it tried to break. And she didn't just survive it. She ended. And even now, days, weeks later, people still can't stop talking about it. Because the fallout from Catherine's speech didn't just touch on a single scandal. It reached across every layer of royal drama that's built up over the last decade. It cracked open the myth that silence equals dignity and forced the public to re-examine the foundation of the entire Sussex-Wales divide. It also reignited the question no one in the palace ever wanted to answer out loud. How much damage has Meghan really done? Because if Catherine's statement is to be taken at face value, and let's be real, it was delivered with a kind of poise and clarity that doesn't leave much room for misinterpretation, then we're not talking about petty gossip. We're talking about a calculated hit on the future Queen of England. Not through a media leak, not through a direct quote, but through something far more insidious, a rumor engineered to spread on its own, a whisper campaign, fed just enough to go viral, timed perfectly to distract, manipulate, and fracture. And it worked. 4 years. Because if Catherine's statement is to be taken at face value, and let's be real, it was delivered with a kind of poise and clarity that doesn't leave much room for misinterpretation, then we're not talking about petty gossip. We're talking about a calculated hit on the future Queen of England. This wasn't just a reputational ding. It was a full-scale narrative shift. People believed William had cheated. They believed Catherine had been humiliated. They believed the Walesies were crumbling, while Harry and Meghan rose from the ashes as truth-telling. But Catherine's response, stripped of any emotional theatrics, exposed just how much of that story was built on assumption and social media sleight of hand. And now, the public's realizing they may have been played. The fact that the rumor lasted this long without any hard evidence, no photos, no leaked messages, not a single legitimate source, should have raised red flags from the start. But that's the thing about scandal. It doesn't need facts. It just needs the right timing and the right enemy. And Meghan, knowingly or not, handed the public both. According to Catherine, the rumor exploded right when Meghan's own controversies were hitting their peak. Criticism over royal protocol, staff treatment, rifts with Kate, it was all boiling. And suddenly, a bigger, shinier distraction appeared. One that didn't target Meghan, but conveniently targeted her biggest rival. Coincidence? Catherine doesn't think so. She didn't mince words about the role Meghan's circle played, emphasizing that while she stopped short of accusing Meghan directly, the implication was clear. These weren't just anonymous trolls. These were people with access, people who stood to benefit from the chaos, people with platforms. And while Catherine stayed silent for years, Meghan didn't hesitate to fan the flames. Her media projects, interviews, and documentaries never mentioned the Rose rumor outright, but they didn't shut it down either. And in a world where silence speaks volumes, that silence was deafening. Now, with the record set straight, there's a growing sense of reckoning. People are revisiting the timeline, the tweets, the Reddit threads. They're asking why no one questioned the story more aggressively, why William and Catherine's side was never given oxygen, why the palace's silence was taken as confirmation, while Meghan's narrative was treated as gospel. And the answer? Narrative control. Meghan understood the media game from day one. She knew how to weaponize her own victimhood, how to frame every conflict as persecution, and how to cast Catherine as a polished but cold institution figure. It worked, until now. Because Catherine has finally spoken, and not with dramatics or tears, but with a precision that cut through the noise. This moment matters because it's not just about reputations. It's about legacy, about who history will believe, about how future generations will understand what really happened between these two couples who were once meant to carry the crown forward together. So now it's up to the public. Do you believe the affair ever happened? Do you think Meghan's camp really planted the story? Or was this Catherine reclaiming the stage after years of staying quiet? Sound off in the comments, like if you were shocked by how direct she was. Share it with someone who's still convinced by the old rumors. And subscribe, because if this was a calm, you already know the next storm is brewing.